contribution. The question is that grievances be noted, and I call the member for Indi.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. The focus of my grievance concerns how we treat our young people and the systemic failures by our institutions to protect them and support their full participation in our democratic processes. An AEC submission to the Joint Standing Committee on Electoral Matters inquiry into electoral education, and I quote, "As at the 30th of June 2015, it's estimated that 80.4% of eligible adults aged between 18 and 25 are on the federal roll, compared with a rate of 93.2% by all other groups." In a submission to the JSCEM, the United Nations Youth Association of Australia noted that the federal electoral system poses substantial barriers to young people participating in our democracy, and that Australia's electoral system is failing our young people. In 2015, polling by the Lowry Institute found that fewer than half of the 18 to 29-year-olds declared democracy to be preferable to any other form of government. Our democratic system is failing our young people, and in my electorate of Indi, we have had first-hand experience of the way young people actively engaged in the political process has been treated by our institutions, and the system has failed them. The Australian on the 27th of September 2014 reported, "The idea that something might have seriously been amiss in Indi 2013 election was first raised by senior Liberal Party officials with Federal Parliament JSCEM in a formal submission. In the newspaper article, individuals were named, accusations were made, the report was syndicated, and the smearing process began. The AEC took these accusations seriously, and in their submission to the JSCEM into the 2000 election, they discussed what they called the close seat analysis in section 7.1, 47 to 50, and it addresses this submission from the Liberal Party. And the answer, in short, was that there was no evidence of systemic fraud. Freedom of information documents show that on 3 separate occasions allegations were made to the AEC and investigated, and on each time the analysis did not indicate any evidence of unusual activity. But then, Mr Deputy Speaker, something changed. On the 4th occasion, the AEC referred the matter to the Australian Federal Police. And by the 30th of April 2015, 1 team leader and 8 team members of the AFP had spent 1,740 hours of AFP time conducting an investigation, and with the result that 27 referrals, 4 briefs were provided to the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecution on the 18th and 19th of May, in respect of allegations that 4 individuals had provided false or misleading information to the AEC. And the source of this was a question asked by the Western Australian Liberal Senator in the other place, Dean Smith, to the Senate Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee on the 28th of May 2015. And this is not the last time Senator Smith indicates a strong interest in this Indi matter. And then eventually, on the 5th of April this year, prosecutors withdrew charges in the Melbourne's Magistrate Court. The court decided there was no case to answer. It smelt like a rat, it looks like a rat, and unfortunately, common sense has prevailed, a reported quote from Rod Starry, a Melbourne lawyer involved in the case. And he also said this has been a terrible waste of resources from both the AFP and the prosecutors. So tonight, I want to put the record straight. There was no false or misleading information. There was no orchestration. There was no incitement. There was no deliberate attempt to fraud. There was no loophole. There was no conspiracy. A significant number of young people who had the courage to engage in democracy were punished. Their reputations were tainted. Their parents, friends and housemates were interrogated about their children's living arrangements. Acquaintances living as far away as New York and London received phone calls from the AFP, and they were questioned intimately about the living arrangements of some of these people. And this, Mr Deputy Speaker, generated enormous fear, anxiety, worry and worst of all, loss of trust. And there has been significant psychological impact. To quote one of these young people in a letter to me, "It has been a terrible time. But over time, and with some strategies I've learned from the psychologist, I no longer have the anxiety attacks when I see a police car or see police at the train station, or indeed read anything about politics." The 2013 election in Indi was clean, it was honest, and the AEC advice still holds for the 2016 election. What if I live in more than one address? The answer on the website: you should enrol for the address which is your permanent residential address. This is the address you intend to return to even if you are living somewhere else temporarily. For example, while studying at university, you can remain on the electoral roll for your home address. And this is what the young people of Indi did. In this whole case, there are many unanswered questions. Why did one national newspaper call into question the integrity of 27 young people? And why did so much of the media blindly follow suit? Why did the AEC decide in 2014 to refer the case to the AFP when on 3 separate occasions they had said there was no case to answer? Why did the AFP investigate 1,741 hours on this case when it was clear, even to them, there was no case to answer? Who was counting the cost? Particularly so, in comparison to other instances in the 2017 election, there were 7,743 cases of alleged multiple voting, and of these, 2,013 admitted to voting more than once. The AFP investigated 65 cases and none were referred to the CDPP. So, Mr Deputy Chair, who should take responsibility to ensure that there is a public apology to the young people, to their families and to our communities? This episode has caused enormous damage to the young people, to their families, to rural communities, where so many people use their home address as their permanent address. It's caused damage to our democracy and trust in our political institutions. In the eyes of many young people, this is even more reason why it makes no sense to engage in politics. The saga has caused reputational damage to the Australian political system. We ask ourselves, why did we let this happen to our young people? Why did no one stand up to them? It has damaged the reputation among young people of our political media. Where was the accuracy? Who was leading the investigation? It has caused reputational damage to the Liberal Party. Having lost the election, they proved to be really bad sports. And to add insult to injury, somebody photocopied all these articles and distributed widely throughout the electorate. And sadly, Mr Deputy Speaker, it's called reputation to the party that says it represents rural Australia, the party that says it stands up for country people. And I ask, why didn't the National Party stand up for these young people, or the rural FIFO workers, or the many itinerant workers who travel throughout rural Australia? The problem of confusion about young people in their enrolment was not new. In 2009-10, the Australian National Audit Office made a number of clear recommendations. Why has so little been done by this parliament to address these recommendations, such as to develop government arrangements for the management of electorals' personal information, or to assess the nature to which the electoral roll information by non-government agencies adversely impacts on the willingness of Australians to enrol to vote? And in closing, I want to explain why I've taken the opportunity tonight to make this grievance debate. I thought it was over and done, but not so. Sadly, there's someone out there who's not content to accept the court's decision. The Liberal Senator for Western Australia, Senator Dean Smith, on the 5th of May 2016, just before the campaign was announced, a full month after the court had said there was no case to answer, asked 7 questions in writing, again to the Senate Standing Committee on Legal and Constitutional Affairs. What is going on there? Why is this topic of interest to the South Australian Senator? This is part of my grievance. Western Australian. This is part of my grievance. Not only has the damage been done, it's being perpetuated. It must stop for the sake of young people to whom it has done so much damage. Who will call the Liberal Party to task on this? Who will take responsibility? I want to set the record straight and to also ask the government to show us how it will work in the future to encourage and support young people to participate in our democratic processes and, in turn, community life. Part of the answer may lie in the appointment of a Minister of Young People and providing support for infrastructure to address systemic barriers that prevent young people from civic participation.
Order.